Hello and welcome. My name is Florencia Colella. I am a farm business educator with Michigan State University Extension. In this video, we will learn about some reports you can extract from PC Mars. This project is funded by the United States Department of Agriculture and the North Central Risk Management Education Center. This is the PC Mars home screen. At the top, there is the option for reports. PC Mars has a lot of report options, but we'll focus on just a few. The first one I want to show you is the check register report. This report looks similar to the traditional check register. It starts with the beginning balance for the month and bank account in question, and then shows all the checks and deposits entered in order by date. It adds or subtracts transactions from this balance up to the last entry, after which it shows an ending balance and inflow and outflow totals. It is an awesome tool for reconciliation. This report includes other information like the period, check number, whether or not the transaction has cleared, the transaction type, so if it's an expense or a deposit, vendor description, account codes, and amounts or dollars in and out. To export this report, after selecting the check register option from the drop-down menu, you'll get this window and you'll have to select the bank account and date range. Then pick View by Date, Show Transaction Allocation Detail, and Show Cleared and Uncleared Checks. If you prefer, you can change the View by choice to sort the list by entry order or check number. You can preview the report to see if you will get what you had in mind, or just go ahead and print it. The next report I want to show you is the detail report. This one includes all bank accounts transactions in one report, so it's nice to print after you've confirmed your check register is correct. I like to keep a monthly copy of this report as a support document. It includes a lot of detail: account code, enterprise, check number, date, transaction type, bank account, vendor, description, units, and so forth. I like that I can separate inflows and outflows, and it will show me totals. So for example, here I can see that my expenses in machinery and equipment were $3,300 and my income from sales is $1,000. This report is helpful to find errors in account classification. It lets me scan through the items within each account. So if the vendor or description don't match up with my group type, then I can go back and correct any errors. It will also include liabilities, split between incoming and outgoing dollars and grouped by loan account. And in the income and expense section, I can make it include beginning and ending code balances to see how my current period income and expenses compare with the year-to-date values. To get this report, I have to pick the Detail Report Selected Items option from this drop-down menu. And in the report settings screen, I'll have it sort by vendor, but other options are date, check number, entry order, or enterprise. The type of transaction option can be expenses, deposits, bank transfers, credit, journal entries, and paychecks. Bank lets you see only one or certain specific bank accounts if you wish. And you can also select by numbers, dates, vendor, account codes, description, enterprise, and amount. I usually just leave everything blank. Leaving fields blank just tells PC Mars to include everything to date. If you want something specific, just fill in one or two of the fields, and that will narrow down the report to include only what you want. From the bottom checkboxes, you can have PC Mars calculate a price per unit on account code items where you have entered quantities. I usually have it separate the dollars in from the dollars out in the assets and liability sections by marking the split asset and liability inflow-outflow box. And I also like seeing group totals and beginning and ending account balances. But if you don't want that, you can just uncheck those boxes to the right. Okay, Now we're going to look at the year-to-date cash summary report. That is kind of like a profit and loss statement, except that, like we've discussed, it's just cash-based, so it's not a great representation of true profitability. But this report gives you a concise look at where your money is coming from and where it is going. It shows total dollar amounts for each account code for the month and to date. Assets and liabilities can be split into inflows or sales or outflows or purchases. Then it shows all income accounts and all expense accounts. And at the end, it subtracts expenses from income and gives you a cash net. It will also include non-farm transactions if you've entered those. To get this report, I first click on the year-to-date cash summary option in the drop-down menu, and then either accept or change the suggested month at the top. I usually leave the enterprise option blank to get everything, and I like to see non-farm detail, inflow and outflow, totals for assets and liabilities, and group totals. I usually do not want to see the budget because I usually don't have it in here, and I also choose to suppress lines with zero balances. Budgets and PCMARs can be created in the cash flow module. We're not going to look at that for now, but just know that the option is there. Next, we're going to look at the year-to-date cash flow format report. This report shows the actual cash flow for the farm. The months are broken down by account code with a total for the account code on the far right. There is a column for each month. This looks similar to a cash flow projection, but it shows reality. It is super useful for building the budget for the next year. You can restrict it to your different enterprises to see their comparative performance. To get this report, we select the year-to-date cash flow format option in the drop-down list, and then select our enterprise if we want a specific one. I usually just leave it blank, and I usually leave the quarterly and budget options unchecked, although it sometimes is useful to see the report with a column for each quarter. And I usually choose to include non-farm totals and exclude lines with zero balances. Since we just mentioned that the year-to-date cash flow report has an enterprise option, let me show you another nice PCMARS report for seeing enterprise information. We get there by going to Reports, Enterprise Reports, and Multiple Enterprise Report in the drop-down list. Then I'll include either a month or range of months and select with the mouse which enterprises to include. I usually pick them all. You can rearrange the order of the enterprise columns by dragging and rearranging the order on this screen. Then you can choose to see the transaction detail list, but I much prefer to see columns. This is what it looks like. It's like the year-to-date cash summary report, but broken down by enterprise, with farm net totals at the bottom and including asset, liability, income, and expense transactions. All right, now let's move on to the balance sheet or net worth statement. The net worth statement is not on the reports menu, but on the inventory menu. It is the bottom choice because in theory, you'll export this after you have completed the above inventory items. Most farmers I've worked with will not use this, and instead, they'll create the balance sheet either in Excel or an extension agent creates it for them in a financial analysis software. But anyway, if you pick that option, you'll get this screen where you'll get to choose to display either cost basis or market values. Basis values means to use the cost of the item, less depreciation taken, plus depreciable improvements made. This reflects the long-term effects of the earning power of your business. Market value means to use the amount that you or someone else believe that the item could be sold or purchased for. This is harder to prove and is somewhat more subjective. It does not necessarily reflect earning power, but may look better in terms of potential collateral for loans. And so this prints a one-page report in a balance sheet format, assets on the left and liabilities on the right. In order to fit this on one page, the items are summarized into general groups: current assets and liabilities, non-current assets and liabilities, and so forth. Then it calculates an apparent net worth that can include your personal assets and liabilities if you have entered them. And finally, it calculates a few ratios. Using a financial analysis software or even Excel, you can calculate a lot more ratios than these. But anyway, the net worth statement option in PCMARS has the potential to print a full balance sheet provided that you invest the time in filling it all in first. Okay, so since producers will usually not create their balance sheet in PCMARS, but instead go to Excel or to an agent, accountant, educator, or consultant for that, they usually need to hand them some information. Sometimes this is handwritten, sometimes printed, and sometimes entered in a spreadsheet, or a combination of these. When putting together this information, they usually go and take inventory, which is great. But one thing accounting records should be able to provide with certainty is bank account and loan information. This information should be reconciled with the bank statements and should include all transactions. For this, PCMARS offers the Bank and Loan Balance Report. This report finds all bank financial asset and loan transactions and displays beginning and ending balances. And it includes separate columns for money in versus money out. To get this report, we go to the Reports drop-down menu and pick the Bank and Loan Balance Report option. And then pick a month and select Split Asset and Liability Inflows and Outflows. I usually don't include accounts payable transactions because I don't keep track of them in PCMARS. Accounts payable is an example of something I just take inventory of at the end of the year. And then I can put that in a spreadsheet together with everything else for my consultant. That brings me to Excel for a minute. There's this neat spreadsheet that you can export from PCMARS by going to Utility and Export Totals. And it will show the account codes on the left, a description, the total balance for the year. So for example, it says 22,500 in machinery and equipment, and we don't really know if this was a purchase for 22,500 or there may have been a purchase for $25,000 and a sale for 2,500, for example. So this is a total, not much detail, but still pretty useful in my opinion. So for assets, which are the account codes in the 100s, it shows year totals and beginning and ending balances to the right. And like I said, the total is a balance that includes dollars in and dollars out. For liabilities, which are account codes in the 200s, it's the same thing, the yearly total and beginning and ending balances. And for income and expense accounts, which are the account codes in the 300s and 400s, it shows the annual totals and unit or weight totals. So for example, here I can see that I sold 60,154.39 bushels of old corn and that the fed cattle I sold weighed 6,300 pounds total. The export window gives you the option of showing yearly or monthly totals, including non-cash items, unit and weight totals, and include or exclude asset and liability balances. So finally, we're going to see how to create a report that helps us file 1099s at the end of the year. For this, the first thing I need to do is to make sure I have my vendor set up as a 1099 vendor. For this, I'll go to the vendor information screen, the yellow one at the top, and that will open a screen like this one, where I can see a list of my vendors to the left, and to the right I have each vendor's detailed information. This vendor is a 1099 vendor, as shown on the checkbox to the right. Once I have that right, then I can go to the Other Reports option in this drop-down menu, and there are a couple vendor reports. One is a summary and the other is a detailed report. Oh, and the yellow vendor list can also be accessed from here. Well, if you choose the summary vendor report, you can pick a range of dates and whether you want to make it general or 1099 only. And that will give you a summary of how much you've paid them so far in the year. The detail report has each transaction, so if you need that level of information, then you can use that. In this video, we looked at the most important reports that PCMRS offers: the check register report, the detail report, the year-to-date cash summary report, the year-to-date cash flow format report, the multiple enterprise report, the balance sheet, the bank and loan balance report, the export totals Excel, and the vendor summary to help with filing 1099s.